this video, I'll tell you about playing too many games and whether it's a concern or not. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, which is foreshadowing, just let me get through this. I was about 7, and my mom took me to a movie. We were going to see the movie Benji, which was about this little fuzzy mutt of a dog that would go on adventures and stuff. I was 7, And so we get to the movie theater, and we get out of the car, and we're walking to the theater, and we bump into some people that my mom knows. And they're coming out of a movie that is called, it's a new movie that has just come out, and it's called Star Wars. And there's some pleasantries and some back and forth, and they say, hey, what movie are you guys going to? And my mom's like, we're going to Benji. And they said, oh, well, we just came out of Star Wars, and Adam might like that. And my mom said, do you want to, because I was down here, because I was small, do you want to go see Star Wars instead of Benji? And I was like, sure. And we did. And I've been a Star Wars fan ever since, but sometimes I think about what would have happened, had I gone to see Benji instead of Star Wars on that fateful day. Some people say that I might have become a veterinarian instead of, all this. But I don't really know if it would have changed things that much, because I think it's possible, and probably you do too, to like a lot of different types of movies. I know very few people who only like one type of movies. I only like documentaries, or I only like horror films, or that kind of stuff. Generally, people have preferences, but they have a tendency to watch all kinds of different movies, animated stuff, action films, romantic comedies, whatever. And I think that even though it's not apples to apples, I do think that tabletop wargaming can be definitely along the same lines. There are people out there who will get unhappy when their group of friends kind of is all over the board and playing a bunch of different games, because they want to just play one game. And I think that that's kind of not the way that humans are generally designed. Now understand, if it's a investment in time or money sort of situation, if you want to have a humongous army and it's all going to be just 20,000 points of Tyranids, or so many goblins for Kings of War that you can't even keep them all in your house, well, then you should focus on one game, because you've got a big goal, and it's a tough one. The money thing can be a situation in that situation. The time issue can also be problematic. You may have 5 kids and 2 jobs. At that point, trying to find enough time to be able to play even one war game is amazing, really. So it's not for everybody, I get it, but I think that if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're becoming bored with a game, maybe look at trying a different game for a while. Some people will refer to it as gamer A.D.D, where you're hopping around from game system to game system to game system. And I've been in that situation before, where it's time to roll a save on this particular unit, and you roll it for a different unit in a different game system because you're having a hard time keeping everything in track because you play a bunch of different game systems. That's just my brain not working super hot. I don't think it's particularly a bad idea. If you're interested in playing a bunch of different games, if you like to hop around from system to system so that things always seem fresh, I don't think there's a problem in that. And if anything, I would say the current market really helps people like you and me, I'm not going to lie, really helps us out, because the small skirmish games, you can get into small skirmish games. This is a very popular game right now. It's called Gaslands. It's from Osprey. This book is like $20, and then all you have to really buy is Matchbox cards, which go from $1 at the dollar store down to sometimes as cheap as 59 cents at Walmart when they're on sale. So you buy some Matchbox cards. Your team is maybe between 3, maybe as high as 6 cars. So, okay, now you're at $26. You glue some bits and some stuff to it. You spray them down with some paint. You set up some very simple terrain, and you're pretty much ready to go. This is a fun game that I'm seeing. It's going to be played at the Tabletop Minions Expo, actually, this very weekend. And you don't have to always go huge into giant army games if you just want to be able to kind of switch gears. If you want to go from this game to that game, there's no reason you might not just hop from more kind of skirmishy style games to maybe slightly bigger skirmish style games. I'm also getting into Conflict 47. So we've got Conflict 47. We've got this one here, Gaslands. Obviously, if you watch the Bat Rep last weekend, Wreckage. I'm a big fan, been playing that for a long time. This is the new second edition. And then also, just happened to be here right in front of me, strangely enough, Last Days from Ash Barker. So this is also a new game, zombie apocalypse type game, from Ash Barker from the Guerrilla Miniatures games channel on YouTube. So there's a lot of different games that you can get into for pretty inexpensively. You know, you could use zombies, or the guys you use, it's a zombie apocalypse game. This is, for lack of a better term, an apocalypse game. There's definite crossover. There's no zombies in Wreckage, but the good guys, you can use those guys in both types of games, and then you pick up some zombies, and they're not too hard to paint or anything like that. They could be zombies from Zombicide, which is a whole nother thing. There's a lot of ability in this day and age to be able to hop back and forth between different games, and it's not a bad thing. Some people will cry gamer ADD, but I think the only time that becomes a problem is when you let it. When hopping back and forth between game systems becomes a problem, it's because you don't ever get anything done. When you do 2 guys for this system and then you switch over and build 3 guys for this system, and you know, it can be problematic in a big army game. It's less of an issue, admittedly, when you're playing a skirmish game, because maybe you built 3 people over the weekend for this game. And then next week you switch over to another game and you build 2 robots that are in that game. Then you go back to the other game the next week and you build 3 more people. Well, now you've got 6, which in many skirmish games, that's your whole force. So you're already done. Yeah, it took you 3 weeks to get there, but that's not that big of a deal. You have to understand that the market's really helping us out when you want to hop from kind of thing to thing. People kind of talk about buffets as a benefit when you go out to eat sometimes. Some people say it's a buffet because, or that's a benefit, the buffet, because you can just eat until you want to, you know, die. I don't think that's actually a good idea, as it turns out. But what I do like to do is take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I do it as well in my gaming. Between all kinds of different, you know, systems like this, where you've got all kinds of skirmish stuff and everything, it's really a good time to be a gamer, as I've said. This type of stuff allows you, in some situations, to mix and match. The cards you're going to use in Gaslands are not going to work in Conflict 47, admittedly. But the survivors you use in Last Days very possibly could be the same people that you use in Wreckage. Being able to find those kind of synergies between the games that you're playing not only allows you to be able to kind of scratch that modeling itch where you're going from this type of modeling to that type of modeling. I want to do pseudo World War II stuff, and now I want to go do post-apocalyptic, and then I want to paint some little Matchbox cars. For me, that's a huge benefit because it allows me not to get too bogged down in my hobbiness, if that's a word. So, and for playing, being able to hop back and forth between systems, admittedly, sometimes I miss parts, but that's not necessarily that hard when all the books are frankly a little thin and not super thick chunky things like we're used to in the big army games. So if you're like me and you hop around between game systems and you go from this skirmish game to that skirmish game to this skirmish game, and your friends make fun of you, just understand that you get to just try a little bit of each little thing here and there and hop around kind of willy-nilly and keep your palate refreshed. Your hobby palate, anyway, you see where I'm going. You can do these types of things and keep yourself a little bit more sane than staring down a line of 200 skeletons that you have to paint for your big army game and kind of wishing that you weren't doing this anymore. And maybe actually toddling off and playing video games or doing other things and not getting any hobbying done. Being able to switch between a short little project of 6 guys for this thing or 3 people for this thing or a couple of Matchbox cars for that thing, that sort of situation in your hobby can really cause your motivation to stay high, which makes you more productive.